The topic I chose for the project is impact of COVID-19 on American food supply, dietary habits, and related factor. I will discuss 5 different topics. The first being, what is COVID-19? Second, arguments, viewpoints, and evidence about COVID-19. Third, economic, political, and cultural impact. Fourth, ethical considerations and actions. And fifth will be my conclusion. What is COVID-19? COVID-19 is an infectious disease caused by newly discovered coronavirus. Most people with this virus will experience a mild illness and can recover without special treatment. Older people with medical problems such as diabetes and cancer develop a more serious illness. Now this disease is sweeping the globe as a pandemic. Not everyone with COVID-19 has symptoms. A lot of people are asymptomatic, but there are symptoms that include cough, fever and chills, new loss of taste and smell, headache, fatigue, aches and pains, and a sore throat. What does COVID-19 stand for? The World Health Organization has decided to name the disease caused by the novel coronavirus COVID-19 and refers to the virus that caused it as the COVID-19 virus, CO for corona, VI for virus, D for disease, and 19 for the year the outbreak was first recognized, late in 2019. What health problems can make you more harmed to COVID-19? Serious heart diseases such as heart failure, coronary artery disease, cancer, COPD, which stands for chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, type 2 diabetes, severe obesity, chronic kidney disease, and sickle cell disease. There are many ways we can prevent COVID-19. Some examples include wear a face mask covering in public areas, wash your hands regularly with soap and water, stay home if you feel unwell, practice social distancing, avoid going to events with a certain amount of people, and get tested. Where did COVID-19 come from? The first known infection was discovered in Wuhan, China, December 2019. We do not know the exact source of the outbreak, but we do know it originally came from an animal, likely a bat. Here are 2 maps, the first one showing COVID-19 cases concentrated in urban areas across the U.S., and the other one showing daily change in New Jersey. COVID-19 is controversial because, for example, this past year has been all about stress, loneliness, and anger. The whole world turned into a panic once it was official that we had to go into lockdown, wear masks, cancel so many important upcoming events, and more. We look at the world as unfair because we weren't used to so many restrictions. People lost their jobs, they were separated from loved ones, and becoming ill. We weren't meeting with dietary needs because of our income. COVID-19 has been the #1 topic discussion for as long as I can remember. Viewpoints of this issue. One of the aspects of this issue involves humans not following the guidelines of COVID-19, meaning that they won't wear a mask in public places. They go to gatherings with way more people than they should, and overall, they just don't believe in this illness anymore. For example, southern states barely follow COVID-19 guidelines as much as other states do. Some don't care anymore, and they think the pandemic is over. Other aspects involve people who follow the guideline and help prevent COVID-19 from spreading. people are thinking about their elderly and want to protect people who are more at risk. A second viewpoint of this issue. Some people believed that COVID caused them to eat better and exercise more. The reason for this is because they were eating home-cooked meals instead of going to restaurants or fast food places. Also, people were exercising more because they had nothing else to do, so they would look up home workout videos on YouTube. Chloe Ting's workouts were very important during the lockdown. Others believed sitting home made them snack more because of boredom. People weren't making as much money because their workplace closed, so if they normally eat meats, which is more expensive, and they weren't making as much money, they would resort to junk food. Also, gyms closed for some time, and many people just resorted to their local gym for their exercise. Economic impact. The response of COVID-19, social distancing, travel restrictions, work from home policy enforcement, and transportation restrictions have all transformed the health crisis into a global economic slowdown that has never been recently experienced. The downstream segment of the U.S. food supply networks are experiencing the greatest impact. COVID changed all aspects of everyday life, including education, work-life balance, and, most drastically, the economy. The economic shutdown created a crisis for all workers, but the impact was greater for women, non-white workers, lower wage earners, and those with less education. The pandemic created a devastating recession as the economy shrunk at a record 31.4% in the second quarter of 2020. Political impact. COVID-19 had its impact on the presidential election because a lot of people took into consideration for both how Trump and Biden handled this virus. The pandemic affected the election because voters began to watch how each candidate handled COVID-19 and how they acted on it. It is a very tough thing that is facing all over the world, and it must be handled in the right way. It changed how the campaign is conducted and how we had to vote. People then started to believe ballot tampering occurred. I'm going to be discussing the supply and demand during the COVID pandemic. It has placed unequal stresses on food supply chains with bottlenecks in farm labor, processing, transport, and logistics. Supply chains of firms were shut down just about everywhere due to the lockdown. Transporting supplies became a problem during the lockdown since the workers were quarantining, and there was a toilet paper shortage as well. Because of the significant changes in customer demand and behavior, the resulting food chain disruptions increased the cost of raw materials and ingredients in many products used in food processing, which led to a spike in price for many finished food products. U.S. food supply chain. COVID has had an impact on the whole process, from the field to the consumer. It resulted in the movement restrictions of workers, changes in demand of consumers, closure of food production facilities, restricted food trade policies, and financial pressures in the food supply chain. During the pandemic, the meat process business appeared to be the weakest link throughout the food supply chains. This image shows food shortages that affected the food supply chain. Sociocultural impact on COVID-19. An article I found stated, "The problem of social and economic inequalities are amplifying the challenge of managing the rapid spread of COVID-19 globally. But what has emerged is the systematic racism, particularly against people of Asian background. COVID is showing a variety of patterns aimed at Asian people." The COVID-19 crisis may be changing the culture of the U.S. as it goes in effect, changing the ways population around the world work, go to school, watch entertainment, understand their moral commitment to others, and interact with every institution in society. The impact of this pandemic and reactions to it on the moral culture of America affects our American history. Social impact. The social distance and security has affected the relationship among people along with their perception of empathy towards others. Social effects of the pandemic affect mostly children, college students, and health professionals. This virus has led to an increase on social isolation among friends and family, causing distress. Ethical considerations and actions. The World Health Organization, aka WHO, is racing to develop safe and effective vaccines for COVID-19. Vaccines work by training and preparing the body's natural defenses to fight the disease. Then the body is ready to destroy disease-causing germs. They encourage elderly and people with health issues to take this vaccine. As of right now, for the ones not ready to take the vaccine, should continue to follow the guidelines preventing COVID-19. How other organizations view this issue. An organization called Medical Bridges focuses on providing clinics and hospitals with equipment and medical supplies to fight off this virus. Thousands donate to this organization to save lives and provide medical equipment for those who need it. The World Health Organization aims to end this pandemic by speeding up the development of safe and effective vaccines against COVID-19, supporting the building of manufacturing capabilities, working with governments and manufacturers to ensure fair and equitable allocation of the vaccines for all countries. The COVID-19 crisis has governments around the world operating in a situation of complete uncertainty and faced with difficult trade-offs given health, economic, and social challenges. During the first 3 months, they closed schools and universities because they didn't know how else to handle it. Now, due to time and more knowledge, most things have or are going to start opening back up again. Here are some pictures I'm going to add showing the shortage of food supply and gaining weight during the COVID pandemic. This graph shows the coronavirus outbreak that put 37 million US jobs at risk. These two graphs show meat production and prices during 2020. You can tell production starts to decrease as prices begin to increase. This is a graph showing unemployment rate in 2020 by age. Overall, COVID has affected our world in so many ways, whether it affects us physically and mentally, our economy, businesses, healthcare, and so much more. There were losses of jobs, everything was becoming limited, and thousands of people have died because of this virus, and it still isn't over yet. Can having COVID-19 affect your diet? It is known that loss of taste and smell can linger or come back differently after having this virus. Foods you used to like may start to taste different, causing you to not eat them anymore, which changes your diet. One of my good friends had COVID last summer, and ever since then, eggs started tasting differently. She went from eating them every day to maybe once a week. This can cause people to either stop eating healthy things or non-healthy things, depending on how it affects you. In conclusion, once everything is back to normal, businesses will fully open, supply and demand will rise, unemployment will decrease, dietary habits will return to how they were, and everyone will be less stressed out. The American food supply will be back to normal, and economic issues will decrease. Here are the links to cite my research. My final links.